I'm Kara Redman. I'm the CEO and founder at BACKROOM. We're a full service brand strategy and activation agency headquartered in Baltimore, but our team is across the United States. 100% learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I find that if you stay really connected to curiosity and figuring things out, that boredom isn't a thing. When you're really attached to outcomes, it can feel frustrating and draining of energy. So if I see something really beautiful or impactful or well done, I'll start thinking like, how did they make this? Like, was it the lighting? Was it the angle? Did they style something a certain way? Is there something else? And try to tinker and figure out how it was made, and then go back and create a playground on my own. A lot of the times it turns out it's much harder than it looks to get it done. So that's where, bringing people in, which also inspires me, finding the right people who are really talented and can bring a different perspective to things. So just learning and creating and always finding something new to do and to make for people keeps me inspired. So I'm always trying to move through that. Just that people come first. I mean, if someone on our team is struggling or needs help, that takes priority over anything else. It's constantly staying up to date on like wellness sciences, so that I as the leader can understand like how people work, how our brains work, how we function, and then how to provide a really strong way of living to them. And it's different for every person, right? There's no handbook for that. um, Constantly taking feedback and checking my emotions, checking ego and things, and self work, so that I can show up for the people that are on my team. And not just feedback on how work is going, but feedback on how that person is doing, because there's so many other attributes to people besides the work that we do. We don't use productivity and creative output as metrics for how a person on the team is doing. And we can usually use them to snuff out when someone's not doing well, if they're not really infused in their work. Sometimes it's just they don't like the project, but sometimes something's going on. We have an operational structure that's flexible enough that any person can take from it what they need. They can take time off on a whim. They can, push off on a project to another team member if they need to. They can take a mental health day. They can ask for help. We're really big on collaboration, and we're very vulnerable with what's not going well. Every month we do a good, bad, and ugly check-in to look at all facets of our life as a team and then figure out like where can somebody help, right? Can I recommend a sleep therapist for my director of strategy's babies? Can I help somebody with overwhelm on work projects by bringing in another resource? So we're just constantly doing those types of check-ins. Nothing matters but making people's lives better and the work that we do, and the work is just a vehicle to that. So we just try to stay really focused on the person behind it. It's really helpful, and I even more what I would consider like self-aware, healthy, whole individuals that I admire and depend on. I find myself surprised when they're struggling or suffering and they don't speak up. But then I noticed like I do that too, right? We want to show up for our team. We don't want to disappoint anybody. So it's really important, and even for our clients to, check in and understand how somebody's feeling without offering any judgment, but validating their feeling and experience, and not just saying, how can I help, but actively finding ways to help can change everything. And I think that that's why the team members that we have at Backroom have been here for so long. Like we take care of each other. And if you're stuck or struggling, we're not, going more and more and more. We're saying like, why don't you maybe take a week off, and we've got you, and it's fine. And that can just feel very reassuring, I think, to create that sense of safety that if I am getting burned out or I'm not okay, or the roof on my house just fell in, which, happened to someone on my team, that like is okay. Why don't you go handle that and then come back and we're going to be fine. You never understand. And I think, especially when you're dealing with more senior level talent professionals, we're really good, especially as women, we're really good at powering through and just putting on game face and going. And only recently, I think, have we really been talking about being vulnerable as humans and showing those, weaknesses that are really just human qualities and traits that we all experience. And I find a lot of it too, just like being a parent and a business owner, being able to have, I want to say empathy, because there's like almost a codependent error to that, but having compassion for people and what they're going through. And I just think about all the times when I was stuck or fell over or was, crying in the bathroom at work and somebody helped me or just understood or was like, yeah, that's legit, right? Just kind of validated my experience. It can change so much in terms of your perspective and how you view yourself. And I think we tend to look inward and like have shame when we're not performant or we're not showing up. And if you're like me, you look at your best day as what is like your normal benchmark, versus just like a really good day. And it can be very draining and exhausting. So, it's tough, and I don't think that you see it a lot in the agency model. It's very reliant on billable hours, but I found, and the reason we're able to have a 4-day work week at Backroom is that if you treat people well and give them good quality, meaningful work, and then get out of the way, like you don't need all of that. Backroom, as a concept and a name, came from me working at multiple agencies that were very outwardly facing for themselves. So a lot of times decisions were made that benefited the agency at the detriment of the client. Awards were won from the agency when maybe it was collaborative with a client. And our whole mentality is like we're the ones that are going to tell you you look fat in the bathing suit before you leave for the beach. We'd rather be making those decisions and doing the hard work and making our clients look good. As one example of how that gets applied is in our public relations strategy is when anytime we get a placement for one of our clients, we introduce them to that journalist so that they get to carry the relationship, right? We just won an award for a client that like she gets to hang on her wall because it's her brand, right? We don't have any awards hanging anywhere in our offices. We always send them to our clients or we do them as in-house for them, because our job is to make them look good, not ourselves. Kind of half joke a lot that people lie about two things in life, and it's business ownership and parenting. Everyone wants to pretend like it's easy and they just had this like magic recipe, but the reality is that we're all struggling and we have the option to struggle in silence or struggle together. And my biggest hurdle in growing my business and continues to be is feeling like the challenges that I had were self-induced and they're because of me and my shortcomings, when in reality they could be in any entrepreneurship textbook of like the things that are like inevitably going to happen to you. And the more I talked to people on the side that I respected and admired, the more it got normalized for me. The more I saw like behind the proverbial curtain of other people, the more I realized that like my shit was kind of together more than most people's. And it was very validating. And I wonder sometimes if I had had more of that to look to when I started my business earlier, would I have taken different risks, right? Would I have asked for help more often, versus sitting and feeling the shame and the worry? And even just from a mental health perspective, would I have suffered less because I would have expected it, because I would have seen how someone else had navigated it? And I think too, just going back to the question about like what inspires me, it's people who are honest and vulnerable. This like we're all struggling in it together mentality that I mentioned is so important. And it's particularly in traditional agency models, it's like an environment of opacity, right? Opacity and fee structure, opacity and like what our process is, and a lot of hidden mystery. Um, and it's like some magic recipe when really we grow faster and better as humans, as professionals, as an agency, as businesses, when we speak up about this is the thing that I'm stuck on. I'm not ashamed of it. Let's observe it. Let's be curious, right? And maybe figure it out together. And I just think that being a constant learner is critical to being great, and everyone wins when we share our experiences. And so I think my hope is that by speaking about mine that are uniquely my experiences, right? That somebody else might see something of themselves or see something that they've been struggling with, and create more normalcy and representation about what it's really like to be a business owner. One of the greatest realizations that I had when the pandemic hit was that people weren't necessarily changed, but they were accentuated. And what I mean by that is, I observed how my peers were responding to the crisis, and I feel naive, but I thought that everyone was in this shared headspace of we've got to go give, we've got to go help people, we've got to do more. We're seeing people that were suffering, right? And I'm very privileged in that my business not only didn't suffer during the pandemic, but it grew. And there comes a responsibility with that when I see the people around me struggling, and not just people, but I think acknowledging the idea that your favorite restaurant and your dry cleaner are part of what make you successful because they support you when you need a place to go and get a drink, or you need someone to take care of your clothes, or someone to deliver your groceries, right? There are all of these things that we rely on as being part of like a tribal type community, that when crisis occurs, some people tend to go into this each man for themselves mentality, but that's not how you operated before this happened, right? And so people weren't necessarily changed into givers and doers, and givers and doers weren't changed into a scarcity mindset. Those people who I witnessed and would expect that would give in a normal environment were giving more even if they had less. And that people who were thriving and doing well and very much feeling or projecting this, I guess, reputation of self-madeism, which I think is a myth. We're doing more of the getting the loans the quickest, right, as the SBA came out, and laying people off to preserve the business, which is not necessarily a bad move. It's a smart business move, but it was almost expected of the people that I saw doing that, when I saw people with less doing more for others.